A little bit of biography about me. I'm Jersey born. My father's a Jerseyman, hence the surname, but I have a Northern Irish mother. And I was educated at Victoria College and then at Warwick University, and I read history there and subsequently became qualified as a lawyer and practiced in the city of London for about 10 years before coming back here. Those legal skills will be useful to you if I'm elected as a deputy. And they have been useful to constituents already, because I think I'm capable of going into a social security appeal tribunal or just dealing with general bureaucracy, perhaps with social security, and intimidating them sufficiently that you get what you want. That's my function, to ensure that your interests are protected. That's what the lawyer does, and that's what I will be doing. But of course, I come free with the job. I won't be charging you £300 an hour. Now, I'd like to welcome in particular the Polish and Portuguese candidates who are standing in these elections. There's Bia Poré, a woman of colour, of Angolan origin, standing in St Brelard number 2. And we've got Konrad Krasinski, who's standing for a senator. I think that's having a real energising impact on those communities that have previously been forgotten. Because in particular on the Polish community, I know personally, I've registered quite a number of Polish people, and they're very excited by the fact that one of their own is actually standing and raising the issues that affect that particular community. And so they should, because this island needs to be inclusive. And we've got this 60 to 70% voter abstention, and I suspect it is highest among those communities. Now, suddenly, those communities realise they can have a stake in this island. And some of you will actually have my manifesto in front of you, and you might have the version that's got the Polish and Portuguese inserts. Now, about the other candidates. I'm surprised that Russell doesn't realise he is the establishment candidate. I'm sure someone must have told him. It's very strange. Because at election time, I'm always struck by the audacity of these establishment candidates who just parachute into our district. People with no previous involvement with either local politics or the community they suddenly claim they wish to represent. I'm the only candidate that actually lives in the district and has to put up with the La Collette smell and sometimes the smut. And I live at Havre de Pars, just down the road here. Most of the other candidates do not even live in the parish. And one does not even live in the island, though he has promised to move back if elected. Now, the essence of the politics that I'm going to be pursuing, and I think I'm ahead of the curve here on this, is to oppose austerity, which is coming. Because there is a £95 million budget deficit, which Mr. Ozip has left us. And that is going to be filled, because there's going to be cuts in public services, cuts in public sector jobs, there's going to be pressure on public sector wages, there's going to be increases in GST, hurrah, hurrah, I can hear you all saying that. And there's going to be new user pay charges, and waiting lists for everything will get longer and longer. And working people and pensioners are going to be will be paying the price of this crisis, and it's not of their making. And I think that I and others in the States will be forming a small opposition. We'll be fighting a rearguard action against the government that is nearly virtually formed. We've had most of the constables re-elected, bar one, and the government is formed. It's going to be the same complexion as previously. And we know exactly, if you read between the lines of their manifestos, and they won't tell you this, all these things are coming because they actually believe in shrinking the state. That means they're not going to assess needs, like we need a new hospital, we need schools. And remember, we had that wonderful kiss and tell final speech from the Minister of Education. It was his colleagues who prevented him from introducing new programs, new teaching skills, new teachers, additional teachers, because they would not provide the resources for him. No wonder our education system is failing. Blame the Council of Ministers. And that's the establishment, by the way. That's the people called Balash, Gorst, Ozip, McLean, Rootchair, and there's a few others standing for senator. if you want to ensure that that establishment is not returned, you're going to have to vote for some other people instead. And I'm suggesting you vote for Anne Southern of Reform Jersey, an experienced woman with NUT background, negotiating skills. Vote for John Young. I think he's a potential chief minister, a centrist. He has my support from someone on the left. There are others, and you'll have to vote for others, perhaps holding your nose, but just don't vote for the establishment. It's often said, and I'm a lefty, you know, and we're often said, oh, they're anti-business. No, we're not anti-business, because Gino and I have often discussed about one thing, the Landlord and Tenant Act 1954, Part 2. What's that, you say? 1954 legislation from the UK. Well, it protects small businesses. It's about security of tenure. It allows a small business, when the lease gets renewed, to have a new lease at the going rate for the area, worked out by a surveyor. That means the landlord can't just suddenly jack up the rent plus the bung, which we know happens. Rents are incredibly high here. Gino could be selling coffee at 50p if his rents were lower. We know that's possible. So, but the referendum. Yes, we've got a referendum again. Aren't we excited about it? I'm going to be voting no. Why? Because if we retain constables automatically as part of the Constitution, we will never have fair representation for St Helier. We've got 11 representatives. But in terms of population, we should have 17. The whole thing is a complete gerrymander. It's been gerrymandered since the 19th century because it was dominated by the interests of the landowners and the seigneurs. Now it's dominated by the interests of the wealthy who live in the northern parishes, by bankers. And in essence, the problem is we are an international finance centre, but it's a low tax, low spend system. And the demands of an ageing population, the demands of education, the demands for a police force, ever more sophisticated. We're actually a small mini state. That means ever increasing state expenditure, I'm afraid, if we're going to remain an international finance centre. We'll have to raise taxes, and governments do have the right to raise taxes. Where are those taxes going to come from? I suggest they should come from the unthinkable. They've got to come from the rich. They've got to come from finance. Finance is going to have to pay a little bit more for ground rent for operating here and making vast sums and vast profits. I think that's acceptable, because otherwise it's going to be tax from the Middle Jersey, from the employees of finance, and from the working class itself by paying increased GST. You don't think it's going to stay at 5%. Come on. It's 22% in the rest of the world, 20%. They're going to increase it. Every time they put it up 1%, it's another £15 million, and it's very easy to collect. And it doesn't affect the rich, but it does affect the working man and pensioners. To fight austerity, you need strong, vocal individuals like myself. You might not like my politics, but you do understand that we need to have a proper opposition. I can help with others to be part of that. So vote for Nicola Cornu, because I'm going to fight austerity and fight for your social and economic interests. Thank you.